Hello and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy channel. My name is Jed, and as always I have to adjust my lights as soon as I start recording. We are in the Meno today. We have a new character coming in. That's exciting. We have a lot of great questions we've been carrying. I hope you've been carrying them too, and I hope you feel like sharing your experience. What has it been like carrying these sorts of questions throughout your day? Has it affected your state of mind? Has it affected your state of aporia? Have you been stung? Is it making you more okay with being stung? Curious, puzzled, looking for the logos. As we are reading in Philosophical Midwifery, in the chapter we're reading at the moment, chapter 2, we are promised that it is entirely possible to verify for oneself that we live in an understandable, knowable, and caring, so an intelligible and caring reality, and mind is constantly communicating to us for our benefit. And we are learning to become aware of that flavor, brand of providence. I'm trying a new chair today, so I'm a bit out of balance, but let's keep going. So we become aware of this nature of reality through discovering the logos, and of course freeing ourselves from the pathologos, which will prevent us from interpretation, projecting, and actually seeing reality as it is, just as we are practicing to do that today by reading the book as it is. Can we read without interpretation? Can we read exactly what's there? That's what we are aiming to do, and in doing so we are bringing our mind to match the mind of the author. And what's going to help us on that, so our mind and their mind are meld. Our mind is being raised to a higher level of functioning to match the mind of ideally Socrates, but what we are reading is that mind that we are becoming like is reality itself, is being itself, because that mind is all pervasive. And it's through the logos we're able to decipher and unpack that care that's being extended to us. So if if logos is intelligible, not only can we understand. So logos is the principle of understanding. It's also the strategy or method of learning. But it's also knowable as an aspect of nous. The logos itself is an aspect of mind itself, and it's how we learn, and it's how we verify the intelligibility of reality by understanding, recognizing, and directly experiencing it. What does all this mean? That means we live in a reality mind that we can constantly be curious about, because the nature of mind also is the logos. Sometimes we call this following the logos. So this state of wonder or aporia, or being at a loss, or being confused and not knowing, being comfortable with being uncomfortable, sometimes people say. This is possible at all times because of the pervasiveness of the logos. So just as we read, just like when we read, we look for certain keywords, we look for the structure, we look for repetition, We look for themes that repeat in the words that are used. And of course, we are reading the words as they are without interpretation. We are discovering the logos in the text. The keywords, the structure, the order, the symmetry, discovering questions beneath the surface, and discovering that they are answerable. There is a goal, a purpose to our life, and that's what Socrates says we will reach if our soul is guided by phronesis. So because we live in this reality that is innately intelligible, that's the logos, we can do something called follow the logos. Look for these patterns. Apply to each moment of our life the same kind of aporia, curiosity, and dialectic that we are applying to understanding the text. Meaning, there's always something to be wondering about. And the more we can tune in and recognize the logos in each moment, well, I guess the more we can walk in line with providence. And what we've been reading is that providence, if it's for our benefit, if providence is the word that means the highest divine benefit being extended to us, then it would be guiding us towards our highest good. That's virtue. That's what we're on the hunt for in the text. What is our highest good? What is the excellence of a human soul? If providence is what we become aligned with when we follow the logos, it's likely leading us to where this text is leading us. And as we've been reading, it requires understanding and communication. There's our dialectic. The dialectic also transitions into the next thing that we need, nous, intellect itself. We need the model of truth, the model of reality, the model of beauty and justice in our thinking. And the parts of virtue exist in nous. So we have to be coordinated with that. So there's our dialectic and nous. By the way, that ain't enough. Even dialectic and nous could be used to do harm. Therefore, it has to be guided by and guided towards phronesis. If that's a good higher even than the good of nous, or mind knowing itself, is a very, very high kind of good. Goodness itself, in fact. A good beyond that. And so we are wondering, what the heck is this phronesis, considering it's what we should be focused on at all times, apparently. And once we get it, we should use it to guide our soul. Socrates goes on to say, hey, by the way, if phronesis is guiding your soul, obviously following the logos with the dialectic, obviously coordinated with whatever nous you remember. Given that, if phronesis is guiding, you will reach. You can, whatever you experience, whatever you go through, you will end up at your highest goal, completing your highest goal, which tells us there is a purpose. There's a purpose to all of our lives. There is a goal. There is meaning. Of course, there's meaning. That's the logos. But there is a telos, or an end goal that meaning directs us towards. And it's completable. And it's completable if our soul is guided by phronesis. And that state is called the eudaimonia, good daemon state of being. So, what the heck is the good daemon state of being? Part of that question is, how does it feel? If it's the ultimate kind of happiness, but it's beyond experience, so it's not pleasure. What kind of happiness is different to and greater than ultimate pleasure, which would be nous? So, what kind of happiness is that state of eudaimonia, good daemonness? What would that way of being be? Our question, how do we get it? We've kind of answered. Follow the logos, as we are learning to tune into in each moment, hopefully. in an aporia, curious, puzzled state of mind, not with certainty or knowingness, but be okay with being stung and all that at sea. Be okay with not knowing. Follow the logos and use a dialectic to awaken or remember nous, and use both of those, that skill or art, along with that memory and experience to reach phronesis. And if your soul is guided by phronesis, that's how you get it. So we've been given a kind of method to reach our ultimate goal, the eudaimonia state. But how do you but how do you do that? How do you guide your soul with phronesis? So how do we reach phronesis? What is it? How do we reach it? And is that reaching, remembering, or something different? So these are the questions we've got. Just a little bit of a reminder where we're at. Oh yes, and an invitation to share how following the logos, or becoming aware of the logos, or becoming curious about the logos, becoming aporia, stung about the logos, how is that going for you? Anybody watching the stream or watching the YouTube? I think I get most of my viewers on YouTube. Thumbs down, thumbs up, and thumbs up for more viewers. Yeah, so if you've been doing this, if you've been applying this, which is important, we don't just do definition and reading, we have to do demonstration on and apply it. That's part of reading. Yeah, send a message, join the Discord, leave a comment section letting us know if it's changed you in any way. Let's jump in. All right, here we go. So, Socrates is saying, I'm not walking back the conclusion that if it is a knowable object, if virtue is something that can be known, then it is remembered through learning, so learnable. But maybe it's not it's not the object of knowledge. Maybe it's something greater even than that. And his reason is, well, I haven't found any teachers teaching this. If our highest goal is to discover the state of phronesis and guide our soul according to it at all times, resulting in our reaching our highest state of being, maybe called the eudaimonia. If this is the most important thing that all human beings are here to do, where are the teachers? Why is there not St. Socrates College? I am constantly searching, says Socrates, to see if there might be some teachers of self, even though I am doing everything I can, I am not able to find any. And yet I indeed share this search with many, and especially those whom I think would be most experienced of this reality. And just now, Meno, Anitos has opportunely come to sit down here by us with whom we must share this search. Thus it will be reasonable that we should share it. For in the first place, Anytos here is the son of a wealthy and wise father. This guy, who did not become wealthy by accident or spontaneously, nor from a gift, just as this Theban did, by having only recently acquired the fortune of Polycrates. Since he acquired it, so Anytos' dad apparently acquired his wealth by wisdom, apparently, and management of self. Secondly, in respect to his other qualities, he is a citizen who is reputed to be neither arrogant nor pretentious, nor overbearing, but a well-ordered and able man. Then in the third place, he raised Anytos well and educated him, just as it appears to the majority of the Athenians, for they indeed elected self to the highest offices. So elected him to the highest offices, elected the excellence that he was showing, because self can mean excellence. And of course, there's that highest meaning that's embedded in there as well, that we can wonder about. What would it mean for us to use the highest use of self and elect that to the highest office within our soul? Is that coordinated with what we've been talking about? So, elect yourself to their highest offices. Surely then, along with such people, such as these people, it is just to search for teachers of virtue, whether there are any or not. Remember how he talked about, I will fight word and deed, that we should always search for that which we don't currently know, rather than say we shouldn't or it's not possible. Here he is saying it is just to search for teachers, whether there are any or not, and whoever they might be. So here is another situation where we are in aporia. We're at a loss. We don't know where these teachers are, who they are, what they might be, but we search for them anyway. This is one of the things that Socrates is claiming to fight for. That is different from all of the other arguments of the Logos that are all if statements. They're all hypotheses. There's something different about Socrates making the claim that we should always search for that which we don't know. He's distinguishing it as different from the regular arguments we make in the Logos, which are hypothetical. Which means, well, could that be something Socrates knows? It's different from understanding, which is hypothetical. He is more certain about it, that he's willing to fight in word and deed. That's a puzzle that we can wonder about and solve, because here he is saying, by the way, this thing that maybe I know, balloons, in a different way that I will always fight for. It's justice. It's just to search for teachers of virtue, whether there are or not. So this thing that he was earlier more willing to claim he knows, perhaps, he is also saying, oh, by the way, that's a just statement. So could he know it because it is a statement about justice? And we've already said that justice and courage are aspects of virtue, which are knowable, rememberable as that experience of nous. Is that why he says it's just? Because he's making a statement. It's just to search for teachers of virtue. Does Socrates know justice? Was he using his knowledge, his nous, his experience of being earlier in the dialectic? Is that a message to us? To make sure that your dialectics are coordinated to whatever you know about nous. It's just to do that. Therefore, Anytos, please share in our search with me and your friend here, Meno. Who may the teachers be of this reality? Consider it in this way. If we wish Meno here to become a good doctor, where would we send him? To what teachers? Doctors, says Anytos. What if we wanted him to be a good shoemaker? We send him to shoemakers? Yes. And I made that really good joke about Formula. If you want to be a good Formula 1 car racer as well, you'd also send them to the shoemakers. And the same for all others. So, we would be acting rightly since we wish him to become a doctor let me read that again. By sending him to the doctors, we would be acting rightly since we wish him to be a doctor. And we would be of sound, sophrosoon. We would be acting with temperance, that virtue of the soul, by sending self to those who lay claim to profess the art rather than those who do not. So we're learning something from the guy who has the art. Make sense? It's turning on my fan. Rather than those who do not. And to those who exact a fee for this self by offering themselves as teachers to those who wish to come to learn. So that's who we're looking for. Is it not with a view towards these matters that we would be acting rightly to send him? Yes. Concerning flute playing a flute, and all the other arts, is it not also very foolish for those who want to make someone a flute player not to intend to send him to those who profess to teach the art and who exact a fee, and instead to trouble others by seeking to learn certain subjects from those people who never pretend to be teachers, nor is there a single student of this learning of selves, which we expect the one whom we sent to learn from selves. A lot of use of the word selves in there. So let's use the word it and see if we can get the first level of meaning. Concerning flute playing and all other arts, is it not also very foolish for those who want to make someone a flute player not to send him to those who profess the art and who exact a fee, but instead to trouble others by seeking to learn certain subjects from those people who neither pretend to be teachers, nor is there a single student learning from them, which we expect if we are going to send somebody to learn about it from this person? Does this appear to you to be very irrational? Anytos says, yes, by Zeus, it does to me indeed. And uneducated as well. Well said, says Socrates. Now then, you can now assist in coming in common along with me to advise your guest friend Meno concerning this. For he, O Anytos, has been telling me for some time that he desires that kind of wisdom and virtue. So for some time, so it sounds like Meno and Socrates know each other. They've got a bit of a history together, perhaps. for some time. So for some time, Meno has been telling Socrates that he desires that kind of wisdom and virtue by which human beings rightly set in order. Now we can see the root of justice here. By which humans rightly set in order their home and their city and take care of their own parents, and to know when to receive and when to send away citizens and foreigners in a way that benefits a good man. Okay, so for some time, Meno has been talking about what? The material world. We live in a world full of people who are like Meno, rich, born into wealth, educated in the finest universities, who will then go on to become CEOs and politicians. What's one of the defining characteristics of those sort of people, other than their ignorance? Their fixation on the material world. They like being rich, they're privileged, they like the physical pleasures and the physical material things you can buy with wealth. And they often seek positions of authority or to gain wealth, to get more material things, or to be able to meet their material needs in the ways they would most prefer, which is sometimes 14 yachts and 400 prostitutes. Now, I'm saying that to make fun of that as a strategy to meet your needs, because it's terrible. No one should be forced to make 14 yachts, and no one should be forced to sell themselves for money. It's a comically obvious example of a broken system if something like prostitution exists. It's absurd we haven't addressed it yet. One of the reasons it's not being addressed is the people whose jobs it is to address these problems do not see it as a problem, because they only are familiar with the physical world, because they haven't had this conversation that Meno has had, where they haven't been brought to realize that they don't know what they think they know. Number one, so they're still attached to their ignorance. And they haven't spent their time removing their false beliefs about the logos and self, and mastering the logos, learning the dialectic. That's needed to move out of baby brain, physical world thinking, and start thinking about ideas and causes and principles. It's this kind of thinking that we can call reflecting on causes and principles, or reflecting on the non-physical that's needed to solve problems. Always. If you don't reflect on the cause of the broken toaster, you can't fix the broken toaster. If you don't reflect on the causes of human problems, you can't fix those. Formally, we can say the reflection on the causes that exist in being is philosophy. But this kind of reflection has a methodology. It isn't just whatever you want it to be. It isn't nonsense. But also, the strategy of the dialectic promises a confirmation in direct experience of those principles, of those causes. Because if they are causes that exist eternally in the realm of being, necessarily, in order for there to be physical examples of that cause, or physical examples of that principle, or the cause causing things in the physical world, for it to exist in being means it's also accessible by that same part of our soul that is still in being. The soul with a capital S. The eternal part of our soul. And so learning would also involve remembering the immortal nature of your soul. Also, having that experience or that remembering or that education would mean you are no longer stuck, imprisoned to the sort of thinking where you are trapped in the physical world, seeking money. I don't care if other people die. They are not souls. They are just physical things. I don't care if child labor has to exist for my new sports car. I don't care about them. They're just physical things. They have no soul. They have no mind. They have no purpose. They have no meaning. They have no telos. And they're definitely different from me. Their self is different from myself. Their consciousness, if it even exists, I don't think there is such a thing. But if it is, it'd be different from me. So why should I care? They're a different physical thing. Well, it's no coincidence that empathy and care is directly correlated to your ability to share in the logos, nous, intelligence. It's no coincidence. The more, as we've been reading, the more we're able to share in the logos or nous, in being the immortal part of our soul, the more we are sharing in intelligence, the more intelligent we are. But also, one of the features of intelligence is oneness. It's a oneness, it's a kind of unity of all souls, you could say, or all mind. Equally so, that which is beyond oneness would be the one, or the one self. Same thing follows. That is, these people that are being rejected by politicians and business people who have the power and the wealth in the world, is because they haven't shared in the logos enough to realize it's the same mind in the experience or nous, or it's the same self in that state of perhaps phronesis. In other words, what you wouldn't want to harm people, you wouldn't want to exploit people, or what is capitalism? Extracting value. You wouldn't bleed them down. You wouldn't sacrifice their life to extract value for your 14th yacht. If it was the same self, and you knew that, and you understood that, and you recognized that. So what? So again, the stakes. Whether it be for us individually, learning to become better people, or anybody wanting to make a positive influence in the world, it's the same principle. What's that? Has to benefit. People want to do good. The word for that is benefit. So earlier we said the characteristics of the soul that allows us to function in a beneficial way is phronesis. So excellence has to be phronesis, either in part or just is phronesis. It has to be there. Don't know what it is yet. But here we're saying everything that we do has to be for our benefit. But Meno is one of those people stuck in the physical world. He wants the kind of wisdom and virtue where you can rightly set in order the soul. No, that would be actual justice. He wants to set in order the house and the city, which is interesting because I often talk about rightly organizing the city myself as a way to do two things. Number one, point to the stakes of what we are learning, of the logos, of becoming curious about philosophy and following the logos. It's the activity needed to solve problems that can save our species and make the world a much better, more rational, caring, and mature place to live in.
No one seems to be learning or growing or addressing actual problems.
But also, mainly the second reason, that is to point to the universality of this. All of these problems we face come down to, well, having a false idea of what's good, or simply not knowing what's good. In other words, we need to recognize there is a universal, true, objective, you could say, but also subjective in that you experience it subjectively in the experience of nous. But there is a true, understandable pattern and paradigm to reality that we need to be following. And we should demand every politician be a master of, rather than the nonsense, the exact opposite that's allowed here. We are using, it's like you're starting a hospital, and there are all these people with qualifications to be a doctor, but instead of them, you go down to the maximum security prison and you hire sadist murderers to become doctors at your hospital instead. That's the way it is at the moment. Socially, collectively, in the city. The people seeking to do the most harm with the most ignorance, with the most physical attachment, and the most attachment to their pathologos are the ones we are giving mastership of our city to. It's absurd. It's absurd for us because we are learning about that universal paradigm. In other words, once you see it, it's obvious. That's why we can make fun of it. That's why we can laugh about it. Our idea is, how do we make it obvious for everyone? Well, that's the idea of the channel. How do we share the logos with everybody? So that's the stakes, but also to point to, it is universal. The fact that it is true for our soul, as it is for our government, as it is for setting in right order our home, is a way to point to the universal nature of the logos. It's true always. It's not just true for Jews, or it's not just true for black people. It's true for all people. Those former divisions based on physical senses, like black versus white or woman versus man, or based on beliefs, Jewish versus Palestinian or Jewish versus Muslim or whatever. These are baby brain stuff. Once you realize, no, being a doctor is nothing about that. Being a pilot is nothing about that. Fixing a toaster is nothing about that. So why is spirituality and governance about that? Why these are the two things that are somehow allowed to be managed by the most stupidest baby brain horseshit? Personal ignorance based on images or physical senses, or personal ignorance based on beliefs that are based on divisions. That's what beliefs are. So Socrates, and it's interesting that these two principles, which is why we can gain insight to where we are politically, insight to how we live as a society, insight to our species, these are important, but they're all secondary. That's one of the points being made here. Yes, we can save our species. Yes, we can live in a utopia. Yes, we can solve all these problems that aren't being solved.
No one seems to be learning or growing or addressing actual problems.
All that is true, but all that is secondary to you doing it for yourself, for your happiness, for your state of being, for your recognition of self. And this is what Socrates is pointing to. Meno is only doing the secondary stuff. He wants to set in order rightly, so it's virtuously, justly, set in order not his soul or psyche or his mind, but his physical body, his physical home, his physical city, your physical parents. Very, very low on the ladder of development. Which is why every now and again I point out, that's why when I talk about government, it's only secondary. But it's still useful to be able to understand the world you live in, even if it's not eternal reality or the self. And it is kind of maybe not optimistic, but helps make you more positive and curious, maybe, to recognize, oh no, thank goodness there is a solution. Because we live in an understandable or intelligible reality. So, we aren't all doomed. We don't have to be black-pilled. It's just a matter of understanding it. But for us to unblack-pill ourselves, to stop being depressed or doomer, nihilist, giving up on everything, it's all screwed, there are no solutions. It just seems that
no one seems to be learning or growing or addressing actual problems.
So that's the significance of recognizing that the logos applied to other things allows us to understand things like music, government, how spiritual institutions should be organized, how schools should be organized, the nature of education, all these other wonderful things that we might as well do well. It's the fact that it does apply to anything that shows us that it's universal. It's seeing the universal truth of this paradigm. That's what makes us feel better. To recognize, oh yeah, it's not all just opinions. So Trump's opinions are equally valid as somebody who studied government. That's insane. But that's the lie that we are sold currently in our society. Important things are just a matter of opinions and perspective, and who's to say what's right and wrong, and whoever's got the most guns and money wins. And hey, children are dying in a genocide in Palestine. What are you going to do? I know, you can just pretend it's not happening if everything is just opinion, right? Just lie. Isn't that what the right wing is doing? Lying about what's happening in the world? Okay, that is very depressing and very anger-inducing, I suppose. The people whose job is specifically to tell the truth is doing the exact opposite in media, in government, in education, in spirituality, in the justice system. It's ass backwards. But the thing that makes us feel a little bit better about that is realizing it doesn't have to be that way, so long as there is something that is beyond opinion, something that is true and universal and understandable and relates to causes and principles, causes to solve problems, principles to figure out what the meaning of life is and how to reach it. If that paradigm exists, we don't have to be bleak, give up. We don't give up. Because it's not that our problems are unsolvable, give up. Discovering that there is this universal paradigm of truth that should be used at all times if you are a good person can maybe make you feel a bit better. So long as it is not just another opinion. You could come in and say, well, this idea that there is a truth and it all isn't just opinion, that's just another opinion that I can reject. Ha 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 ha. Look how clever I am. So there has to be something demonstrating it's not a one-off thing. It has to actually work universally. And seeing that the logos and dialectic, the word we could give to that universal paradigm that's needed to be learnt to solve problems and reach our excellence, we can give the word logos. That's a pretty good definition of it. Logos. So what? So the fact that the same logos can justly order your soul, as it can justly order your house, as it can justly order your city, as it can justly order your compositions in music, maybe. Pointing that out shows us its universality. That's the thing that we've been looking for. Truth. We hate the news media because they're lying. We hate politicians because they're lying. We hate CEOs because they're lying and doing harm. It's both. But the lying is at the start of it. There needs to be a truth. They can say, oh, there is no such thing as lying. If everything is just opinion, there is no standard, principle, paradigm for truth. If we can see for ourselves, that's the most important thing. You're not going to convince others who aren't interested in learning, but for ourselves to realize that there is truth, because there is a paradigm that applies to houses, cities, souls. That both Socrates, the best of people, and maybe Meno, who is very characteristic of the worst of people, both can get there. No one has to be excluded or threatened or put in the naughty corner or fined or put in prison or genocided or murdered or tortured. No one needs to learn in that way, because we can all play, if that is the logos. So I think that's behind why Socrates is pointing to this. To point out, yes, it's universal, so relax. And secondly, don't get solving political problems ain't the point. Because you can with the logos, it shouldn't be your first goal. It should be secondary. Don't be like Meno, who only wants to order his house and city, not his soul. Okay, that's interesting. I think that's interesting. So for some time, Meno has been saying he desires the kind of wisdom and virtue by which human beings rightly set in order their homes and their city, and take care of their own parents, and know when to receive and when to send away both citizens and foreigners in a way that benefits a good man. So here we have a couple of qualifiers. Good man, only a good man. Only man, of course, means human. A good person is the sort of person who is seeking the benefit, seeking our highest benefit. If you're apathetic or want to indulge in things that you think that you know are bad, or are your pathologos or whatever, then you wouldn't be qualified as a good person. So you have to be seeking the good, seeking to become better, seeking to stop doing harm, and seeking your excellence, but also seeking benefit. So, what does it mean to send or to receive or send away citizens or foreigners in a way that benefits? Obviously, when he's not talking about immigration policy. Well, Meno would be thinking that way. If I was a betting man, I would bet he would be the kind of racist who's very concerned about separating people into groups of same as my family and other, and harming he already has said, harming my enemies is a part of virtue. So consider to whom we should send him that he may learn this virtue. Or is it clear from the account we just made that we should rightly send him to those who profess to be teachers of excellence, and who offer themselves publicly to all the Hellenes who wish to learn? So there's our principle of a universality. No need for all of the baby brain, archaic, stupid, barbaric shit like punishment and reward, like violence and torture, like division, segregation, murder and genocide. Nope, not needed anymore. That's stupid. Because all the Hellenes, Hellenes, all of the Hellenes can learn. All of the humans can learn.
You're a wizard, Harry.
Because you're a wizard, Harry.
It's a win-win.
And we all win. So, they offer themselves publicly to all the Hellenes who wish to learn, by fixing and extracting a fee, and they get money out of it. Who are those you are referring to, O Socrates? Says Anytos. Uh-oh. Do I have a... Ooh. You do know without a doubt that they are those who call themselves sophists. Now they have a name. So all of these people who claim to be philosophers, we call them philodoxias, people who are lovers of opinions. All of the current philosophers, or the modern philosophers, we could call them, they would be sophists. People who are not learning the dialectic logos to reach nous, to then reach phronesis, and be curious about the state of being stung the whole way through, and always seeking this benefit, seeking to remember the immortal nature of the soul, so that you can reach your highest destiny. That's open to everyone. That can solve the problems of your soul, help you reach your highest goals, and then can be secondarily used to solve the problems of our society. No one at any college I've ever seen is doing that. No, it's one person. Of course, there has been one person, Dr. Pierre Grimes, but other than that, he passed away last year. This is not what that is officially taught as philosophy. It's the opposite. So Socrates calls these people, even 2,000 years before today, he called them what they were, lovers of opinion. So you learn Hegel's opinion.
It's a win-win.
Have you read Brand at all?
Brand's
Have you read
opinion.
Nagel? What about Scanlon?
Nagel.
Have you read Scanlon or Scruton or Edmund Burke? Have you read C.S. Lewis? Have you read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe? Have you read Immanuel Kant? So you know Flick.
What has this got to do with Bob's Burgers?
Do you practice self-love in a Kantian sense? Do you masturbate to Kant? Have you seen Infinity Wars? Have you even seen Age of Ultron?
See, that's a comedian making fun of this way of thinking. Just quoting opinions to justify your dumb opinions. Right? So they're also called sophists. Last time we were talking about, this is the Roman educational tradition. Or sometimes we call it Aristotelian or materialist. This first level of looking only at the physical world. So looking for, personal profit, wealth, meet your physical needs, never addressing your pathologos, because that's not a physical thing. So you always stay unjust, and you never reach excellence, and you end up infecting others into your own cause of your problem, your pathologos, and never reach this universal paradigm that's needed to unify our race and solve problems and reach our excellence of our soul. So that's the Roman tradition, when we diverged from the Greek. So we have to go back to where we left off. This guy, Socrates. So what do? Well, they profess to make you a better person if you give them a lot of money through the university or whatever. And they're called sophists. Anytos says, "By Heracles, hush, O Socrates. May none of my family or friends, nor citizens, nor even foreign guests, ever catch such insanity, so as to go to these people to be mistreated." So Anytos thinks that these people, these sophists, are just mistreating people. Since they are indeed the manifest canker and ruin. The heck's a canker? Canker sore. Canker is a small area of dead tissue which grows slowly, often over years. Some cankers are only minor consequence. Others are ultimately lethal and therefore have major economic implications for agriculture and horticulture. Oh, this is a plant canker. Why are you telling me what a plant canker is? I think it's just like it's a mouth sore. Okay, they're not contagious. Irritating and painful. Okay. So, What are these people? They're not, and by the way, when I'm saying universities, I'm also, also we should acknowledge the right-wing grifters, the manosphere, the Andrew Tates, the people who charge courses to be an alpha, or all the multi-level marketing scams, and the self-help gurus like Tony Robbins, and these people who say, hey, tidy your room and try hard and you'll be good and you'll be better and you'll be like me. I know. So all of these people, sophists, I call them professional opinion havers. It's interesting that these people who try and position themselves as life coaches or man alphas or alpha mans or something, they always have the same trajectory. They do something terrible to get clicks. And then once they've got attentions, they say, can I please be a professional opinion haver? No, everyone's like, what? No, everyone has dumb opinions. But the thing about opinions is you love the ones you have and you don't care about anything else. Like if I say, hey, let me give you my opinions on women, why would I care? I mean, I really love my opinions about women, but no one else cares. I'm never in a position to act as though my dumb opinions are truth. I'm never in a position to cosplay as a Noah. So why do you get to cosplay as a Noah? Why do you get to pretend your dumb, false opinions that are harmful by the fact that they are opinions and not logos? Why do you get to do harm while pretending to do good? And they will say, I don't know, whatever. I'm closer to God if they're grifting through religion. I've got big muscles if they are grifting through the alpha manosphere. I hate women just like you if they're grifting through the right wing Republican side of things. As though somehow that magically turns them into, turns their opinions into something that's not harmful. We call them sophists. What are they? They are a canker, says Anitos, and they are the ruin of those who associate with them. Think about it. Oh yes, anyone who associates with those sorts of sophists, or I love the smell of my own opinions and I want people to pretend that they're right because I don't want to go through the work of this. Yeah, those who associate with them do end up being ruined because of it. Almost as though Socrates warned us 2,000 years ago. Why are we not listening? Well, we are, because of this podcast.
Wow. Where's the joy? Where's the whimsy? Where's the childlike wonder, dude?
What do you mean, Anitos, says Socrates? Do they alone, of all of those who profess to know how to perform something well, differ so much for the others that they do not render useful? Whatsoever is handed over to them just to cells, just as the others? Like when we've talked about doctors and shoemakers, and what else did we talk about? Doctors, shoemakers, flute, the majestical flute. Talked about the flute. How come those who profess to be experts in those and charge a fee to make you better at it, they're not so crazy, they don't make you worse at those things. They don't do the opposite and ruin your ability to play the flute or make shoes. Why are they different to the sophists? Why do they differ so much from those others that they do not render useful? Whatever is handed to them, just as the others. But they do the opposite by ruining it, says Socrates. He says, what?
What? What?
And for doing this, they expect to be paid? Paid? Expect to be paid for all this? Look at that. Paid? For ruining the flautist? Therefore, I, for one, cannot put my trust in what you are saying, Anytos. For I know of one man, Protagoras, who acquired more money from his wisdom than both Pheidias, whose beautiful works are thus seen everywhere, and 10 other sculptors. Okay, so Protagoras has earned more money claiming to teach philosophy or virtue, more money than these actual artists who actually make beautiful physical sculptures. Alright, does that happen now? Does Andrew Tate make more money than any of the people he is grifting off of? Do all of his, abused, manipulated, brainwashed followers, are they the ones doing the work? Does Donald Trump know anything about politics? Does Elon Musk know anything about rocket ships and computer programming? Nope. But who has all the money? Oh, and those people with all the money who don't contribute, don't actually have any art and can't make anything, but claim to be better, have a higher understanding of the good somehow. They actually end up ruining things and people, and they expect to get paid. And yet what you say is remarkable. If those who repair old shoes and clothes were to return the shoes and clothes they were supposed to repair in a worse condition than when they receive them, then they could go unnoticed for 30 days and get away with being a catch me if you can, I'm not actually a shoemaker, I'm just pretending. Maybe for 30 days you can get away with that grift. If it's shoes. Whereas if they did such things, they would quickly starve to death. Eventually people would see through it, people would talk, you wouldn't be selling shoes, and you wouldn't be making money, and you'd starve to death. But then for the whole of Hellas to fail to notice that Protagoras ruined those who were his associates, sent them back worse than he received them, for far more than 40 years. Okay? Are there any people in the public eye who wouldn't get away with their level of ignorance and incompetence in a shoe store? They wouldn't be able to get away with it in a shoe store for 30 days, but somehow for years and years and years they've gotten away with their grift, their false claim to know things that we all don't, the false claim that their false opinions are actually true or good or helpful or beneficial. Somehow they keep getting away with it. Shock. For I think he died when he was near 70, and 40 of those years were spent in his art. And in all this time, even into this day, he has not ceased in keeping up his good reputation. What? These grifters can even have a good reputation? What? Not only Protagoras, but also a whole host of others those who lived before him and others still living at the present time. Furthermore, are we to say that according to your logos, the sophists knowingly deceive and mistreat the young? I mean, Donald Trump would never knowingly deceive and mistreat the young, nor would any of his associates who maybe own planes and islands. I mean, all of the years that Donald Trump owned a child beauty pageant, he wouldn't be knowingly deceiving and mistreating the young. I mean, Elon Musk wouldn't be trying to knowingly deceive and mistreat the young by appealing to the right-wing incel grifters and the online terminally lonely and disconnected young adults because of the nature of capitalism causing their problems, causing this disconnection, causing this apathy and suffering. He wouldn't be knowingly trying to deceive and mistreat them, would he? I mean, Jeff Bezos never. I mean, Elon Musk never. I mean, who else claims that their false, unexamined opinions are truth and beneficial because some bizarre justification? God told them so. Let me think. Charles Manson? Cult leaders? Oh, religious authorities. Religious authorities are not known for knowingly deceiving and mistreating the young, are they? That's never happened before, has it? It has. I'm hearing from my chicken. You telling me it has happened before? He's telling me not only has it happened, it's characteristic of the whole institution? Really? It's one of the distinguishing features of religious authority? Hang on a second, I'm getting word from my flamingo. It's not just religious authority, it's all sophists? Really? There's been a whole Me Too movement where other people who aren't necessarily politicians but in positions of authority with all of the money are claiming to know but are actually knowingly deceiving and mistreating the young? It's all of them. Now they're telling me, of course it is, because if you are a sophist, if you are rejecting the logos, rejecting midwifery to pretend to cosplay that your personal opinions about what's good is actually good, if you're that sort of person, then by definition, you don't have the tools to remove your ignorance. That's midwifery. That's the midwifery use of the logos. And you are ignorant about the true nature of the good and what benefits. So, of course, every businessman, CEO, politician, or anyone in any position of authority, if they are this sort of a person, a sophist, and not examining themselves through the logos, of course they will knowingly deceive and mistreat the young. Can't do it as a doctor, can't do it as a pilot, but if you are someone who claims to know about the idea of the good or what benefits the soul, I should be a CEO and be rich, says the rich people, because I know how to organize people. I know how to get the best out of people. I'm not actually building anything. But yeah, that's why I should be 800 billionaire. I should have all the money and the gold and the mansions and the private jets because, yeah, I'm a preacher. You know, I'm closer to God, you know. Or are they unaware? Or are they unaware? So, these are... In the Phaedo, Socrates called them anti-logos as well. And philodoxia in the Republic. So, are they unaware? Or are they doing what they're doing knowingly? If this is so, then we must consider the sophists to be insane. So they're insane. We must consider the sophists to be insane. The very ones who profess to be the wisest of all. I'm a very stable genius. Very stable genius. I'm the most stable genius of all the stable geniuses. The ones who profess to be the wisest of all human beings are knowingly deceiving and mistreating the young. For 40 years, while still keeping a good reputation. Even though that kind of, if you try and pull that stuff off at your shoe store, you will eventually lose all your business and starve to death because people will see through it as the shoes start falling apart. But how long until all the Abrahamic religions fall apart, I wonder? How long until the capitalist system falls apart? More than 30 days. They must indeed be quite insane, O Socrates. Far more insane are the young men who gave their money to them. If you're dumb enough to believe in religion, if you're dumb enough to believe in whatever cult you grew up in, if you're dumb enough to believe in Trump, a famously pathological liar and grifter, then you are the ones who are insane, says Anytos. But even more insane than those young men who give their money to them are those who are their relatives, who entrusted their young to the care of these men. It's the parents, they are the most insane. Why send your child to a religious school? Why send your child to a school in capitalism? But most especially insane are all of the cities. Okay, so we've got a list of terms. By the way, this idea of when to receive and when to send away citizens and foreigners, we said that's... Although, yes, Meno was one of those racist people who would be interested in those things, literally, but Socrates wouldn't be bringing that up. So we are wondering, what is the equivalent of a citizen or a foreigner to the soul? Notice, he is also setting up an analogy for us. So this is what I'm going to encourage you to do. He's saying, look, what we are looking for is something to do with wisdom and virtue that will help us to organize our home and our city. So you can take this city one here, because he's given us more terms. Citizens and foreigners. So as the city is to citizens and foreigners, let's write on the board. Okay, let's put it up. This is a puzzle he's asking us to do, so we might as well do it. So what's one good way of finding puzzles? Analogies, which is as the city is to, this means is to, as the city is to citizens and foreigners, this, which means so too the soul is to what? So our question is that I'm sharing with you guys, sharing the puzzle. What would be the equivalent in the soul to citizens and foreigners? Okay, and this is all in service of benefiting a good man. When to receive. So, and when to send away. So what would be the equivalent of receiving and sending away these things in the soul? And notice this whole analogy is about benefit. To benefit a good person. So this analogy is something that we puzzle about in order to figure out bless me, how to benefit a good person. And that good person is you. You wouldn't be this far in if you weren't the sort of person who is seeking the good and wanting to improve themselves so they can actually do benefit, unlike Trump, Musk, Bezos, Charles Manson, Pope whoever, Imam whoever, cult leader whoever. So, fill in these. Or become curious about them at least. That's one of the big themes, aporia. So, back down here, we also have a list, which means maybe is a clue to a puzzle. What's in this list? Well, it's to do with insanity. So you know who's really insane? The sophists we've got over here. The young men who go give money to these schools to learn to be a philosopher or whatever, or learn any personal development, life coaching, spirituality, all of that stuff. The young men who give them the money are more insane. So the word insane is repeated. Notice, we talked at the start of today about following the logos and the fact that we can be in wonder of the logos at all times because the logos is all around us, communicating in an understandable way. We have to learn to pay attention and learn to unpack it so we can actually get the message, unwrap the present, the most bestest present being sent to us. And we talked about one of the ways is to look for patterns. Well, it is the way. But one of the patterns we can look out for, like you might notice coincidences or serendipity, something like that in your life. Oh, I just thought about this, or this is the second time that person or someone has said this to me. It's almost like the words are repeating in my movie. So repetition is one of the tools. And it's also, we won't get into its connection with beauty, but repetition. So here we have repetition, insane, 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 insane. They're all insane. Everyone's insane. Look at all the insane people. Insane, insane, insane. Let's give it purple. That's an insane color. It's a crazy color, purple. So look at all the insanes. So there is a significance to this. I don't know what it is, but I've seen enough repetition, one more, to notice that there is probably a question being pointed to that we are to discover, or maybe an answer to the question, or more likely, both. Which is a wonderful feature of the Logos, that inherent to the Logos, or the patterns and words and intelligibility that's being communicated to us. The puzzles being communicated through the Logos are often, or maybe always, solved, or can be solved, or can be the answer can be discovered within the very words used to communicate the puzzle. That's neat to see. So, but we see this in midwifery when we ask people, can you describe your problem? Now, the way people talk about their problem before midwifery will be wrong. If you understood your problem, you wouldn't have your problem. But the way we understand it tells us more about the problem. And the way we explain our problem in midwifery can offer us clues to solve that very problem that we are communicating. Another example of the profound beauty and intelligibility, understandability of the Logos, which is something we can be in aporia or wonder about at all times, because it's all around us. It's everywhere. It is maybe all of it. Lots of puzzles.
Wow. 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 Wow.
So, what's the significance of insanity? I don't know, but let's keep going. We also have a list of terms. Sophists are insane. Young men who give money to them to learn to become an alpha bro, or a professor of philosophy, or a marketing person, or whatever. They're insane. The relatives who sent the children to the young people are insane. Who entrusted their young ones. But most especially, the cities are the most insane. What do we see about this list of terms? That's the next thing. Pull out the list of terms. Look for this is a great example of how to look for the Logos. We've noticed some repeating words. With insane, there's a clue. We've noticed a list of terms. So we've probably got to, what do we do when we have a list of terms? We organize it. That's the dialectic. So dialectic hand in hand with the Logos. You need the Logos terms, but you need to structure it to unpack the message. The cities, what they did? Allow them to enter in and did not drive them out. So here is this repeating theme, whether the foreigners or citizens should be accepted or left. What is it? Citizens or whether to receive or send away citizens or foreigners. That's what Meno was talking about. Anitos is saying not just send them away, but drive them out. So we can, again, the words he is using to communicate his problem could be clues to solving his problem if he can be aporia, if he can be a good person, if he can become curious and wanting to be better. Because he's driving them out. Also, maybe there's a clue to his problem in his Logos. Okay. Socrates is saying the cause of this terrible knowing mistreatment and deception of the young, it's the sophists. The sophists, we have them in our society too, until we discover the Logos. So they are the most insane. So also we can wonder, why is Socrates picking out them? And what's another way of talking about the Logos? Reflecting on causes. Are the sophists a cause, a primary cause for the harm towards young people. Because they are professing to be wise. Just like the pathologos, the greatest injustice, the greatest damage that we get and can do is not just doing unjust things, but while pretending to be just. That's because if anyone believes the pretending, it's going to stick in their soul. But it's not just. If it's an unjust thing while cosplaying as the knower or the wise person, if anyone, usually the young, believe, then you've harmed them in a way that's going to affect their whole soul, their whole lives, and maybe even beyond. That's the pathologos. So, the ones professing to be wise, but actually not providing anything beneficial and actually sending them back worse, that's the sophists. They are the ones I am saying are insane. Alright, so if that's where we start, now we have Anytos. What does he say? He ranks them. So, we have a list of terms. What do we want to do? Rank them. So write them out on whatever you're using, notepad, whatever. And one way of ranking them would be the way that Anytos does. In fact, the way Anytos picks the terms and ranks them might be a clue as to his problem, which would be a clue to his state of mind, which would be a clue to us to recognize the same sort of state of mind and functioning we might fall in. We've been talking about how we all have Meno moments. We start as Meno. We're moving from Meno to Socrates, but also maybe because Meno is it's so archetypal. We've used it to explain politicians, religious people, cult leaders, grifters, alpha market, multi-level marketing people, so on and so on, because it's archetypal. Okay, so maybe there'll be an archetypal nature to Anytos. Don't know. Keep it open. Keep that question. But how does he rank them? First of all, he picks young men. Yep, they're already picked. Their relatives who entrusted them, and the cities who allowed them to exist. So those are our three terms. And he is saying the most insane is the city. Where's the responsibility? Would a bad city that doesn't value the logos and true philosophy and instead value sophists, would that bad city be a result of these people claiming to be wise and so on? By the way, would they have any influence? Would Andrew Tate have any influence if young people didn't subscribe to his course? Does that have a knock-on effect to the people having learnt this kind of ignorance from Tate or some other sophist? Would that affect the way that they relate to their family and family, relatives? And if that's having a flow-on effect, will it ultimately create the nature and the problems within the city? If that's a more accurate causal list, I don't know if it is, just off the top of my head. Maybe there's a different way of ordering them. Or maybe if we're ordering in terms of causality, maybe I got it wrong. Share your thoughts in the comments or Discord. But if it is true that he's got it backwards, then maybe that's his problem. Maybe one of his problems is misunderstanding causes or misunderstanding hierarchies, putting the bottom at the top, which is interesting because Meno wanted to take charge of the conversation all the way through when he should be the follower. He claims to know virtue when he doesn't. He wants Socrates to keep that reputation or image of him, even though both of them see through it. They both know he don't know shit. Just like Do politicians lie? Yes. Do we all know they're lying? Yes. Do they know we know they're lying? Yes. It's all a big charade, like the pathologos. There is no value put on truth and seeing the truth without interpretation. Or another way of saying that, following the logos. There's no interest in our city for following the logos. Maybe in order for it to, for us to live in a city that values the logos and can solve problems and live well, actually care for us, our people and our planet, would we need the sophists to be different? In other words, how does the city change first, or do the people claiming to be wise have to first change? Pick up the quest to follow the logos, and then secondarily there'll be this effect on society. Actually, wasn't that what we were talking about earlier? This is always about you, to know yourself, to organize your soul, so that you can know the self and mind. So we're going to keep that open as a question as to whether or not this is a true order, how we should rank them, and whether or not it's a message about Anitos' problem. So lots and lots and lots of questions that we are wondering about. Okay. According to your logos, according to your reasoning, according to the conversation, the sophists knowingly deceive and mistreat the young. Or are they unaware, says Socrates. And if this is so, again, this is also the dialectic, right? Come to a conclusion, and then you use it in the next step. Use it to go somewhere. Given that, they knowingly deceive and mistreat the young. And given that, they call themselves the wisest of all human beings. They must be insane. They are quite insane, says Anitos. But more insane are, okay, so sophists are at the bottom of the list. More insane is the young men. So young men are higher in terms of insanity. Even more insane than them. Notice more, meaning that's another repetition. What would that be pointing to? Well, I'm guessing the repetition of the word more is to highlight the significance that it is hierarchically ranked. This isn't just a list for you to read and keep reading. No, stop. Do the work. Do the thing Socrates is yelling at us to do through 2,000 years of time. Perhaps the only actual teacher of virtue. So take a moment, write it down, and the word more repeated indicates there is a hierarchy, telling us, yes, you're right, there is a puzzle. Go ahead and do it. Be a good person. Seek excellence. So that's the word more. Young men, number 2. More than that, relatives who entrusted the young ones. Even more insane, the cities. So we've got city, relatives, young men, and sophists. A list of 4. Oh, that's interesting. Because, so this is a good illustration of what it means to read in the new way that we have to learn, in the Greek way, not the Roman way, not the slave way. And we talk about this, the true hero's journey. Us as the wizard on the quest, because to carry a question is to be on a quest. But also, we're like Sherlock Holmes. Reasoning is our superpower. We're looking for puzzles and we're solving puzzles. Wizard and Sherlock. We just mentioned we have a whole bunch of questions today. So this question sack is getting a nice fat. So we'll have a big, nice, juicy, fat sack of questions that we're carrying. Also, a bunch of conclusions that we carry with us. We don't know them for certain yet, but we carry them as hypotheses, ifs. But also we have skill trees. What does that mean? That means as we are reading in this way, reading in the Logos way, the Apollo way. So we also earlier talked about pulling out these key terms you could represent as Apollo. You have to be reading the text to find these key terms. But it's not impactful unless those terms fit together in a beautiful order that has a significant meaning and effect on you. Aphrodite. Apollo, the god of philosophy. Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty. Or beauty being the oneness of all of the parts. We get the parts and then we organize it. And to do that, we have skill trees. As we've been reading, once we've seen like groups of twos, we put them in here. There are two sides to the dialectic. There are two people in the conversation between Socrates and Meno. There are two options Socrates gave, whether they are knowingly deceiving or if they're ignorant. There is a pair of Apollo and Aphrodite that go together. But we just saw that we have 4 key terms we've pulled out. The sophists, the young ones, their relatives, and the city. So that we've got a list of 4. But hang on a second, we've also been developing our skill tree as we read, which means there are other sets of 4s that we are familiar with. And what happens to be the biggest set of 4 is... Say it with me. The dialectic. There are 4 categories in the dialectic. D, D, A, C, or sometimes called D, D, A, S. For DD standing for definition, demonstration, and division, and AS for analysis, synthesis. But of course, analysis and synthesis are the 2 subheadings of conclusion. DDDC. 4. So, after you've had fun wondering about, and maybe you've had an e-date with somebody, you found a like-minded fan of philosophy who's also in the game. By the way, all human beings are playing this game, whether they know it or not. It's just a matter of the question is whether you want to do it consciously in a way that can do good, or whether you're going to do it like a zombie in a sleepwalking state in a way that's going to harm you and others. That's the question. If you find a good person interested in this kind of work, play game fun, and because these sorts of people are rare, maybe they're an internet person, that's okay. You can still invite them for a coffee on an e-date. Round of applause. So after you've talked about these terms and you've wondered about what their ordering could be, or wondering about any of the other clues, like the repetition of insane, and had a go of creating hypotheses, creating ifs, possible ways of ordering those terms to represent an idea, causal, maybe there is another idea. Then after you've done that, together over coffee, try these. There are 4 terms. Can you find a way of fitting the 4 terms that fit in within these 4? Does it fit nicely? Could that be a clue to what we are to be doing as we read? As a living being? So try this one. And after the coffee date, the e-coffee date with your e-philosopher friend, let us know how it went. What were the hypotheses you came up? What were the ways that you could connect it with that? Hey, maybe you've got other 4s because you've been in the game for a while. You've got a few different 4s. Dialectic is just one. That's the skill tree. That's what the skill tree is. Oh, there was this other thing that we read. Text, but there was also a group of 4. It's in my skill tree. So whenever I see 4, I wonder if I can understand that set of 4 according to this set of 4. Like, for instance, there are 4 classes of Olympian gods. The anagogic, the vivific, the ruling, and the protecting. 12 gods in 4 sets of 3. Do they fit? Protecting. Well, the cities have to protect, don't they? They're the ones who drive out the foreigners and allow in the good people. Could that? So these are the sorts of things you can wonder about and have fun with. Which will not only improve your understanding, it will also improve your application of the dialectic, which allows you to understand and define things and think well, which also is creating the conditions within your soul. By thinking in this way, you are literally organizing your soul. You are choosing how to spread. So by soul, we talk of soul is a way of, okay. There are several ways of defining soul. In general, it's a way of pointing to the whole of the psychic elements within yourself. Your reasoning capability, your desiring capability, your life energy, that kind of thing. But if you are using your life energy and time and thinking and mind to look for patterns of the dialectic, you are creating the conditions for insight. And because what we are applying it to is something that is true and immortal and eternal, that insight, the answer to the question, comes along with, potentially, if you're successful, the actual experience of that thing, because it's one of the knowable things. In other words, it's one of the learnable things. So by thinking in this way, you are organizing not your house, not your city, but your soul according to a paradigm that's true and universal, perhaps beneficial, but also needed to move from physical senses to understanding, dialectic, from dialectic to nous, the direct experience, the answer, and even from nous, that has to be in service of phronesis. Don't know what that is yet. And then if phronesis guides your soul, you will eventually reach your highest state and goal, the eudaimonia, a kind of happiness and state of being like the good daemon. So, oh, and if the coffee date goes that well that you actually go through all of those stages, then please, if you gained anything from this channel in your ability to reach that and ability to establish that good, mature, loving relationship based on dialectic and not ignorance, because it's one or the other really, it's one of those two option things. If this channel led to those amazing outcomes, then help the rest of us. Give back by using your art to help the rest of us follow that same journey towards excellence. If you like, you don't have to, but Socrates encourages it. He says, don't dwell in the isles of the blessed. If you've gained from others or from the city, then pay it forward. Help others in this quest. And if they're buying you a coffee, even better. Cheers. My flamingo likes coffee. Hang on, Anytos. What does Socrates say to this? What injustice have you undergone from these sophists? How did they hurt you? Whoops. Socrates says after Anytos says, you know who's insane? The sophists, but even more the young men, even more insane to their relatives, even more as the city. Socrates is like, man, who hurt you? What kind of injustice have you undergone from the sophists, O Anytos? Or why else would you be so hard on them? Holy crap, man, what did they do to you? No, by Zeus, says Anytos, I have never associated with any of them, nor would I allow anyone else of my own family. Socrates says, then you have absolutely no experience of these people? Anytos says, and may it remain so indeed. Socrates says, then, O blessed one, how can you know about this reality, whether it has anything good in itself, or if they're worthless? If you have... Sorry. I was saying if they are worthless, I was pointing to the example in Anytos' life. He hasn't had any experiences of sophists, but he's very certain that they are harmful to the city, to the city, to the family, to the individual, even though it has nothing to do with them. Has no knowledge, claims to know. What's the nature of most human beings' problems? Have no knowledge, claims to know. What's the worst sort of person you can be? Someone who claims to be the wisest, pretends to be wise while actually passing off their false opinions as though they are truth, or the logos, knowingly deceiving and mistreating people. Pretending to be knowing and not knowing. It's a theme. Almost as though it's a problem all human beings suffer from. And if you are watching along with the pathologos, you can recognize the cause. Okay? By the way, when Socrates was looking for... He had absolutely no experience, says Socrates to Anytos. When Socrates was looking for people to teach virtue, he said, I've been looking because it's just to always look for what you don't know. So I've been looking for teachers of virtue. And the ones that I look to especially are those whom I think would be most experienced of this reality. We talk about yesterday someone made a joke. I was like, oh, really? We can have coffee with friends and not engage in regular small talk, but become better by talking about ideas, leave our individual selves and talk about universal ideas, and practice the dialectic while talking about it. And this benefits our soul. That's amazing. But he was saying, so step one is find a friend. I'm not saying step one is judge people before you pick who are you going to try and become friends with. Socrates judged people who he thinks would be most experienced of the realities that he's looking to. Not physical things, not amassing wealth and exploiting people, not punching people you don't like or starting wars or genocides, and not even gossip for the ones you do like. That's pretty much human conversation. What we're talking about is causes, principles, and ideas. What is beauty? What's the cause of our world? Where did I come from? Where am I going? What's my purpose? How do I know it? What is justice itself? These are all non-personal. These are things that are true for everyone, always. The realm of ideas, and beyond that, the self. Nous and phronesis. That's how we use the dialectic and logos. Notice, logos, nous, and phronesis. Third hypothesis, second, first. It's always these three. These are the three that are blocked. These are the three levels of development that it's next in line for us if we are to survive. As a species, but again, first of all, you. If you are here now as a human being, that's where we're at. Fourth hypothesis, bound by groups in the physical world who are themselves motivated by ignorance and images, And the worst of them are the leaders, because they're the ones pretending to be knowing while they pass off their harmful ignorance. Call them Putins and politicians, call them Joseph Smiths and religious people, call them Charlie Mansons and cult leaders, call them Musks and Bezoses or CEOs, you name it. So, Socrates is picking the people more interested in or more experienced in the logos instead of opinions, reality or nous instead of the physical world, and maybe even self and phronesis. Whereas, and that was the point to the chatter yesterday or last time. Try and make friends with people more experienced in the reality you're interested in. Logos, mind, and self. 3, 2, 1. Then start with some small talk. Don't launch with a dialectic. Excuse me. Let me make 4 arguments as why we should go on a coffee date. And I will also make 4 arguments that will tell a story of a universe where you fail to accept my coffee date invitation. So that way we can look at the universe where you agree and the universe where you don't. 4, which will give us 8 total categories. That would... you know what? I was saying don't start with that, but absolutely start with that. But don't phrase it in that way, because they won't know what the dialectic is. But you do it so that you can make a convincing argument. Hey, by the way, I think you are a rare sort of person with an interest in 3, 2, 1, as I am. And by the way, it's fun to have conversations and reflect with those sorts of people, because it sort of makes us better, and it's a fantastic fun thing that helps us become better and learn. I mean, or if you don't want to meet for coffee, and then pull from your dialectic from that negative set of 4 to show the absurdity or the harm that would follow if she didn't accept your invitation. Now, don't go all the way and say, oh, and by the way, if you don't, it's unlikely you're going to get introduced to the logos and the pathologos, and therefore you'll stay in your pathologos problem. You won't know you're carrying it because it's by nature, it's not in words, so you have a kind of amnesia about it, but it will cause the repeating cycles of problems and suffering you go through, because the pathologos dictates the states of mind you go through and how you relate to yourselves and others. And you'll think you'll be doing good, but you'll be actually doing the opposite, which is a tragedy. That might even affect your reincarnations, and it's maybe the last. And if you live out that pathologos and do exceptional harm, you might not come back as a human, or maybe it'll be a long time. In other words, this is a very important moment for you. The call to adventure, an opportunity to discover the logos and pathologos, to free yourself from your problems, become more of yourself, know yourself, and maybe even reach your highest goals. And if you don't, you live a life like a zombie, sleepwalking zombie, suffering without the tools you need to end your suffering and reach your excellence. Now, all those things could be in that negative category of the kind of universe that would follow if it wasn't true that she accepted your invitation, or he. But, don't start with that. Be selective. And if it doesn't work, please correct me. Come back in the chat and say, you know what, I tried that. My understanding was help with the dialectic, the 4 categories if she says yes, the 4 categories if she says no. And I try to selectively pick the most important ideas and express it in a fun way, because philosophy is fun most of all. And it didn't work at all. She called me a sophist and she threw her latte in my face. She was very much like Anytos, any mark of philosophy. She has no experience and yet she hates philosophers. Could you believe it? And then we can talk about it and reflect it in the text and see if maybe that specific drama was the best kind of drama to happen to you in order for you to realize something if you reflected on it that would lead to a higher happiness and higher goals than if she had said yes. In fact, that might be the nature of Logos itself. So wonder about that, try it out, and come back. Notice, just like Socrates said, if you are successful and you reach the eudaimonia state of self, the state of phronesis, mastery of the dialectic and nous, turn around and help us. Turn around and come back, talk with us, reflect on it, share your experiences, and share your understanding of the experiences and help us through the dialectic. If you are successful, if it doesn't go well, same. It's always the same. Shoot for your highest goal. Shoot to be in it in your highest state of self, so excellence. We talked about the quality of the soul of magnificence. Magnificence, we could say, is shooting for your highest goal magnificently. Like, you don't want to win the World Cup by cheating. You want to win the World Cup by fully playing the way that expresses the self. Where was it? Health, strength, beauty, and wealth are for the physical body, just as sound-mindedness, temperance, justice, courage, quickness and learning, memory, and magnificence are the sorts of things that can really benefit the soul. If they are in alignment with nous and they are guided by phronesis. So, always the same, be magnificent in the most personally significant activities, and then turn around and reflect. Ousia, reflect on your experience with these sorts of people you have judged to be more open to the Logos. In order to A, help them reach the success you've reached, or B, wonder about the difficulty that you faced, to gain an insight, to overcome it. And what's curious about this game, even though it's your problem or your difficulty to overcome, almost always, if not always, the other people helping you do the reflection will gain further insight into that problem for themselves too, or to something similar of their own problems. In other words, even though it's your ousia, your reflection, somehow in shooting for this magnificence, in shooting for the highest goals, dialectic, nous, and self, somehow it becomes universal. Now that I've said it, of course it would be universal. Logos, mind, and self are universal. That's why it's the next stage of evolution. Groups are not. Group opinions, just how you grow up. That's it, more or less. So if you do turn around and reflect on the difficulties you have reaching those goals, using the dialectic to initiate a mature, loving relationship with someone who you can practice this reflection with, even though it's your problem that you're reflecting on, other people will gain from it as well. In other words, it's
a win-win.
Have you read Brand at all? Have you
where's
read
my
Nagel?
sound drop?
What about Scanlon? Have you read
no, hang on a
Scanlon or
second.
Scruton?
All right, I had a perfect opportunity for my drop.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win. So, on that note, go for it. And turn around and talk about it. It's a win-win.
It's a win-win.
And when you're doing it, make sure...
Where's the joy? Where's the whimsy? Where's the childlike wonder, dude?
you have joy and whimsy and childlike wonder, or aporia. In other words, yeah, we're always shooting for our highest goal, and we're always half the time reflecting on how that went, judging people to do that reflection with, to find the best and be the best, be our best. And there are problems to solve within our life and secondarily within our world and our species. There are problems to solve. There are things that need to be made better. And once our problems are solved and we move from sickness to health, there is still the movement from health to excellence. After we don't have these terrible problems that need to be addressed, how do we use that freedom and health to reach our highest goals? Yes, that's a journey. And yes, we might not get there, individually and as a species. But as we move in that direction, with the fullness of self, the fullness of sharing the logos as our attention, and the fullness of wonder, we can move while having fun. Every movement can be fun. Every movement can be in wonder, as we said, because that's the pervasiveness of the logos. Every movement can be a wondering about the intelligence being communicated to us. Every conversation about this can be fun over coffee. Even as we said, if you're reflecting on it going poorly, you are still with a friend reflecting on what's meaningful to you, and you're still learning. It's still fun. So spit out that black pill. We've read enough to get clues that, there is a paradigm that's universal and understandable called the logos that we can learn, so we can solve problems, we can reach our excellence. Our job is to do it and have as much fun along the way. On that note, I hope to see you tomorrow, because tomorrow we are going to be doing midwifery and it's going to be a lot of fun. Thank you once again for joining me, and see you then. Say bye to my stuffies. Bye to flamingo. Bye to chicken. And one more.